It is a brand new episode of Flyers Daily, the midway point of the month of July. Flyers Daily, as always, presented by Ticketmaster. Make more memories live. I'm excited for this episode because we got a lot to discuss. It's about setting the standard. That's what we're going to do in this Mondays with Meltzer edition of Flyers Daily. And he joins us right now from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and, of course, HockeyHotStove.com. We're putting out great content. It is Bill Meltzer. Bill, welcome to mid-July, the peak of heat.
Yes, it's the I prefer to start a countdown to the season than
Oh, I've got one.
Yeah.
you know that it's 60 roughly, by my count, 63 days until rookie camp will start,
Right.
and about 88 or 87 days until what I believe will be the regular season starting.
Right.
We should get that scheduled this week. No,
I would think so. It felt like it came a little earlier than last year. So
yeah. I think I saw somebody had tagged me on a tweet last week. I forget who it was, but they said that the schedule release was this week, and I love the schedule release because I like looking at the flows and patterns of a season. But I also, when I look at the schedule, I go, well, that's my schedule now. That's the NHL delivering my schedule, like our schedule to us, because we cover the team, and it's a work night for us when they play, and an off night when they don't.
Exactly. So yeah, well, I lose track of days of the week except by the hockey schedule. So
yeah. Well, I mean, I wonder, are they going to have the usual trip to Southern California? Are they going to start on the West Coast? They're going to start on the East Coast. We'll see where all those things go. And John Tortorella said last year, starting with the schedule they had, that's because the NHL, kind of deemed like, hey, you're kind of one of those teams doesn't get high in the pecking order. You got to earn that.
Yeah,
so we'll see if that happens coming up this season for the Philadelphia Flyers. Bill, in this episode, I kind of want to, I'm kind of in that mode now, and I've really been thinking a lot about it and going through a lot of different things, other teams in the division, in the conference, and I kind of wanted to begin this focus of kind of setting the standard for the season. You and I, we talk about expectations at this time of year, and expectations, I think, for the sports fan are one of the most paramount things in the world because it determines your mood. If you have these lofty, over-the-top expectations and don't meet them, you're mad. If you have just, I'm not expecting anything I get is good, then you're probably happy, although that's not really kind of an honest way to live. But if you have educated, reasonable expectations, you can kind of guide your way through it a little bit. So I kind of want to look at the, that element of it as we start to, I don't think building what your expectation is something that is, just think about it one time for 5 minutes and you're done. I think more has to go into it.
So a year ago, we about this time we were talking about the same things as to what realistic expectations were going into the season, and the Flyers had just missed the playoffs on the final day of the season, and we thought, okay, maybe still around 88, 89, 90 points or so. The Flyers fell short of that expectation last year, and we'll go into some of the reasons why. I thought going in that I think there's an opportunity for the Flyers to be a better team this year. To me, one of the biggest X factors, again, we'll get into that too, has been the goaltending has to be better, obviously.
Big time.
And with a little more, with better health, a little more consistency from Sam Ersson, and hopefully Dan Vladar comes in and does his job. I mean, I think that's 6 to 8 points right there.
I totally agree with that. Yeah.
So that's kind of on the outer edge of the bubble of where the bar has been set in the last year or two, and I don't know where the playoff cutoff line will be this year, but looking at what the team's kind of done since last year, since the second half, because really the process kind of started in January, leading up to where we are now. I think that's where the Flyers are, is kind of about where we thought they would be last year, but hopefully trending upward for the longer term as their cap situation improves.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it, and if you can just get to league average in goaltending, what does that mean from a standing standpoint? Power play, if you can get that to not be in the 25 or below, what does that kind of accomplish in the standing? And it's funny because we went into last year and we go, what defines success? What does it look like? Is it in the standings where success is determined, or is it in individual development? Guys like Jamie Drysdale, or guys like Bobby Brink or Noah Cates, Tyson Forster all took steps. Is it in guys like Owen Tippett, who I thought took a step backwards last year? Cam York to some degree as well.
Yeah.
So, Bill, as we assess this, we're sitting here now, and the draft has happened, free agency has happened. We're presumably going to go into the season with the known of what they have now, with Christian Dvorak as an addition, obviously Dan Vladar, who you mentioned, Trevor Zegras, and some of the other pieces. So, who are the contenders when you look at it right now to possibly make this team, on a full-time basis, at least out of camp, to cause some change going forward? I mean, to me, the guy at the top of the list is probably Alex Bump.
Yep. I would.
Luchenko, Martone, Andre.
Yeah.
Bonk, I think, is a real long shot. I think he needs time in the AHL. But who are the guys that are the real contenders as we get into rookie camp and then training camp?
Well, I would certainly think that Alex Bump is right near the top of the list.
Yeah.
I thought it was very interesting, your conversation with him, particularly as to why he didn't burn or want to burn the first year of his contract right away. He wanted those playoff games with the Phantoms. His game has come so far in the last couple of years, plus with Tyson Forster's status uncertain going into the season, and we'll see how much time he might miss. There's a great opportunity there. If he doesn't start the year with the big team, it's not the end of the world. I think he'd be up pretty quickly. But I think there's a golden opportunity for him to take a job right out of camp. And there's also Porter Martone. I mean, I think one guy or the other are at the top of the list of the two guys who might make the team heading into the season.
Yeah, I mean, they got to figure this Martone thing out pretty quick, Bill, because I know even with the rule changes and the NIL and players going from junior to college, and we saw Gavin McKenna formally commit to Penn State last week, which is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah,
congratulations to Penn State and
yeah.
Guy Gadowski. But Martone can't come to camp if he's going to college.
Correct.
So they got to figure this out.
There's any number of ways that they can end up taking this, but they do have to make a decision very soon, because if he's going to go the college route, they have to decide that.
He's got to decide where he's going. Is he going to Michigan State? Is he going to Penn State? Where's he going?
Exactly. So that decision is going to come down the pike very soon. He'll play in the World Junior Summer Showcase. I mean, Canada hasn't announced their roster yet, but he's a lock.
He'll make the team.
And Luchenko's a lock too.
Yep.
But beyond that, I don't know, because you can kind of weigh the pros and the cons of each option. If he goes the college route, as you said, he can't come to camp. He can't come to camp in September. On the flip side, unless Penn State were to go really far into the Frozen Four and whatever, he would be eligible for the Phantoms, maybe for up to a good solid month of this deal, or nearly a month, final month of the season, or come straight to the Flyers if he turns pro.
Yeah,
turns pro and goes right to the Flyers. So he could see some NHL time by the end of the year, if he goes that route. Whereas if he's going back to juniors, yes, he could make that team out of camp, but you have fewer places you can send him. He would still be subject to the AHL age rule. The Flyers did want to have him join the Phantoms when he initially turned pro, kind of a similar thing to Bump. So he'll have more options available to him.
All right, Bill. So we've kind of gone through some of the possible additions to the roster this year. Let's talk about some of the question marks. We always talk about the question marks. We make our proverbial list as we head into a season, and it's my contention that the more question marks the team has, the more tenuous their season is to finish positive. But here we sit again, heading into a season, and the biggest question mark hasn't changed. It is goaltending. Shocking, right? But I will say this, and I know you wrote a story on PhiladelphiaFlyers.com and NHL.com this week about Dan Vladar. Some of the things he said in his media availability, I loved. He said, I think the way it should be is whoever's going to play the best should be playing. Obviously, I'm going there to play as many games as I can, but I'm also there for team success. So whoever's going to be hotter at that time should be playing. There's not a lot of entitlement in Dan Vladar that maybe we saw with a Russian goaltender.
For sure. And he's a guy who said that really fight for his playing time. With Dan, the biggest thing with Vladdy has been that it seems he's played in a lot of bad luck. He played for some bad teams in Calgary. Had season-ending hip surgery. Uh, a couple of years ago, he had a stretch with back-to-back shutouts. I think he had I think it was November 2021. He had a 960 save percentage, and then he tweaked a knee and missed about 6 weeks and wasn't back on it. So just that kind of bad luck that you know affects a
Hips and
player.
knees, huge problem for a
Yeah.
goalie.
Oh, for sure. Especially I mean, and he's a big frame guy too.
Yeah.
So I will say this with Vladar, because I watched a lot of Calgary games in the second half. First to check in on Farabee and Frost, but also because they were such a compelling team in the stretch drive. They ended up tying with St. Louis. They lost out by tiebreaker, but they made a heck of a run at the end. And from March 1st until the end of the season, Vladar got 7 games, which of course still means that the majority went to Dustin Wolf, the decided majority, but they were in such a tight race with nothing to, with really not much wiggle room, not much margin for error there. Every game was pretty much a must win, and Vladar was really good in March and April. Biggest games of his career. He was finally healthy. That I think was the main part. So he's 27. A lot of times goalies develop a little bit later. If he can stay healthy, he has the ability, has shown the ability in stretches to be a guy who can push for at least a split time role, a 1B kind of a thing. So obviously he's going to have to provide an upgrade on what the Flyers had last year, particularly compared to Kolosov specifically. But even with Fedotov, he was really up and down over the course of the season. And of course, Sam Ersson had injury issues, some really hot stretches, particularly around Christmas time, and then again the latter part of the season. But Sam has to put that together for a whole year. If between Ersson and Vladar you can get a majority of good starts to keep him in games right off the bat, there's an improvement. But it's a question mark because neither guy has ever done it for a full season, and see how all that works. But Vladar certainly has a great attitude about it. He came here to compete. He didn't come here expecting anything to be handed to him, and also, I mean, Fedotov also has something to say about it too. There's still competition going into it. So, competition can push somebody to a higher level, or
some people buckle on it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's something where there's not going to be a lot of leash for anybody. So that's but that still is a huge question mark. There's not one other than that. Sam Ersson will be on the team and will at the very least have an opportunity to take a true number one role and run with it if he can. Other than that, we don't know very much of what with any certainty of what's going to happen.
Oftentimes with goalies in competition, it can become very unhealthy very quick.
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the position, there's one crease for the game. With forwards, there's competition for ice time, not ice end of story.
Yeah.
But I really liked the disposition that he comes in with. And we've had some friends around the league, and some of our colleagues have done some deep dives with other people that have covered Dan, and we've gotten some really glowing reviews regarding his personality.
Yeah.
You just saw the way in the media availability, every person that came on, he thanked them.
Yes.
I just see a really good guy there. And I love the fact that he did his homework. I mean, he dropped some names, some big boys, some big names too, of people that he checked in with. I know in your story you mentioned Jake Voracek as a guy who gave Philly a glowing review. Radko Gudas, 2 guys that played here for a long period of time. Michael Neuwirth, who played here for a good amount of time, Czech player. And obviously Yager played here for the year. And they all gave glowing reviews. And it's why I say, Bill, that the word of mouth thing for players on where to go and how you're going to be treated when you're there is very important. And we see it paying dividends here because I think that was a big part for Vladar to come here.
No, without a doubt. And Christian Vork said the same thing too. He
Mm-hmm.
talked to friends and colleagues who played for the Flyers before, um, and they all had good things to say. When you're weighing different possible destinations, um, maybe at some point bigger fish than that, but just in general, that whole thing of you know the word of mouth among fellow players means a lot, and sometimes not with sometimes the outcomes don't work out great, and sometimes they work out tremendously. But just a recommendation from guys that have been there before, with players that I hated to leave there. I loved my time there. I love the facilities there. I love going to the arena. I love the energy in the building. All those kind
Travel.
of things. Yeah, and the travel being a big part of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Vladar mentioned that as well. I mean, you look at it, and the travel here is much better. One of the reasons that Nick Ehlers cited going to Carolina was the travel. In Winnipeg,
yeah,
it's pretty grueling, and in Carolina, albeit it's Carolina, it's not exactly on the Northeast corridor. It's still much better. Vladar, I went back and watched on my NHL app his last game he played of the season. He had a 968 save percentage, made 30 saves on 31 shots back on the 17th of
yeah,
April
yeah.
when they beat the
That,
Kings 5-1. It was a really important
that
game
was a,
too.
yeah.
Really like the way he moves.
When he's a really big athletic goaltender.
Yeah, under
The
control though.
Yeah, I mean the things with Vladdy to look for, and having seen again quite a bit of him in Calgary this past year. He's one of those guys pretty quickly if he's on his game or not.
Yep.
If even though he has the athleticism to recover or make kind of a scrambling save, if he's on his angles and he's not leaving out big fat rebounds early on, I'm probably whether a goal is scored or not. Generally, generally means he's going to have a good night.
Yeah.
And,
He's
and,
getting
and
to his spots and square.
yeah,
He's on it. He's reading the play.
for sure. And a lot of times, as you know, with bigger goalies, there's a lot of moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
Bigger goalies can be susceptible to 5-hole goals sometimes, just
Mm-hmm.
because moving to get square to the shooter. Um, when he's on his game again, as he was down the stretch, he's very hard to beat. I mean, there's not a lot of room to shoot on him. And when he's on his angles, he gets hit by he blocks a lot of pucks too.
Yeah.
So you can tell usually. I said usually within the first period as to how he's going to hold up that night. And he had some games down the stretch where and I mean, of course, Wolf did as well. He was a Calder finalist for a good reason,
Yeah.
and he got the lion's share of the playing time. But there were some games where Calgary really had to hang in there because the Flames struggled for goals, and there wasn't much goal support to be had a lot of nights. And down the stretch, really the reason why they tied with St. Louis for that with 96 points, really the number one reason was goaltending. I mean, Wolf all season, but Vladar late in the season.
Yeah, really, he really did come on strong at the end of the year, and a lot of that comes with feeling more comfortable after dealing with some injuries. So, I'm looking forward to covering him. Although I may have to break out the booster again to interview him. He's quite large, so we look forward to that part of it. Bill, obviously, that's one of the biggest question marks. Some other question marks, and we haven't talked since the signing of the extension by Cam York, 5 years, $5.15 million AAV. I mean, I don't know how else to look at this, Bill, other than a grand salami for Danny Briere. If York goes back into being the player he was 2 years ago, I think there's more offense there to contribute and more
Yeah,
growth to his game. And I think Cam's a confident, player, not cocky, but a quiet confidence about him. He's proven that he can play top pair minutes and, parse his energy properly. 5 years at 5.15 million in a rising cap world, maybe the most discount valuable contract for what you're getting of any player in the city.
yeah, for sure. Coming off of a down year, I really had thought that they were headed for some kind of a bridge deal.
I thought it was two, maybe three
That-
tops.
That's that's what yeah that would have walked him right down restricted free agency. In this deal, usually if a player is going to give up uh, a year, especially a couple of years of unrestricted free agency rights,
You gotta overpay.
you're gonna overpay for it. You're gonna you're gonna pay him based on UFA kind of prices because that's the back end of the deal. So clearly York wanted to be part of this here. want to stay here for the long term. Um, and yeah, I mean, in terms of a team friendly deal, it's not like it's not even a no trade kind of deal. I mean, he's betting on himself to a large degree. Where when it expires, he'll be 29, so still kind of in his prime, maybe towards
South of 30. Yeah.
yeah.
That's strategic.
So no, so I mean, he could be in line for a much bigger payday down the line, but that's still a long term to bet on yourself. So I thought, wow, that's a really team friendly deal, and yeah, that I was not expecting that for sure.
When I look at some of the business that Danny Briere has done, you have the Tippett contract when maybe he's a little bit of an outlier, but
Yeah,
the Sanheim, Danny didn't do that one, but you look at some of these deals and you go, boy, if they're going to get the kind of performances
that's
they can get out of some of these players at this price, they're in a really good spot.
for sure. These couple of guys that they had thought, Forster and Cates and
Mm-hmm.
guys, and it hasn't played out so far where guys have been signed to offer sheets. So that was a lot of people were predicting that going into this. A
Yeah,
lot of guys re-up even before July 1st.
but he protected himself.
But he protected himself. And he did it. He did it at a good price.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
is he a shrewd negotiator, Bill?
it certainly seems that way, right? And even like if you look at Dvorak's contract, the Flyers probably did overpay a little,
Yeah, for
right?
less
But it's
term.
a 1 year deal. But it's a
Yeah.
1 year deal,
Yeah.
and so if you're going to overpay, I would argue that, for example, that the 5+ million cap hit that he has for 1 year is probably a better deal for the Flyers than, let's say, 4.75 for 2 or 3 years.
I agree. I
So
said I would rather pay him what they're paying him for the 1 year
yeah, for the
than
1 year.
pay him 3.75 for 2.
Exactly. I mean, that's a good bit of business there too.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I actually wrote about on Hot Stove today, figuring with Dvorak, right? They you don't sign him to that kind of cap it figuring he's going to be a fourth line center.
No.
But when you play through the scenarios, right? Okay, you acquire Zegras, but is Zegras 100% for sure going to be a center all year long?
Yep.
Um,
Jetlachenko.
Jatlachenko, does he make the
Mm-hmm.
team?
He does. You move Dvorak to a third line wing.
Right. So somebody at some point, yeah, does at some point Cates maybe go back to a wing?
Yeah.
There are options, I mean, it'd be fantastic. Everybody's healthy all year long,
Yep.
but just the way hockey goes, there's going to be injury in there somewhere. Hopefully not in camp, um, but there's competition in there, and if something doesn't work out, again, it's 1 year, or in a scenario that I think that none of us really want to see, where the Flyers are once again
Sellers.
kind of out of the playoff picture. It's a very trade friendly deal.
Yeah.
If you have to eat some cap for the rest of the year, it's just for that year. You can move them wherever you need to move them. So
You eat half of that, you may be able to get. You never know if he plays well. You may be able to get a first round pick
or
in
at
that
least,
market.
or at least a
Second.
two or whatever. But I mean, that's where also having the shorter term deals where the cap is expanding. They'll have some contracts coming off the books. So you'll be back again where you can actually absorb some cap as you're moving guys or whatever you need to do. As you move forward, there'll be more liquidity and more flexibility too. So the Flyers right now are a little bit tight to the cap, but you have the option if you need to use long term injury reserve or whatever, or maybe go one fewer player on your opening night roster, whatever, however you have to manipulate it.
Yeah.
They have some flexibility. Then I think a year from now they have a lot of flexibility.
Oh, yeah, they certainly do. And just because if Dvorak's playing on the wing doesn't mean he can't take key faceoffs.
Right,
We saw it
for
with
sure.
Giroux and Couturier,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
yeah, he can jump in that faceoff dot. He's one of the top faceoff guys in the entire NHL. Risto not starting the season, Bill, obviously. I'd say that's a shock, but it's not a shock because he hasn't started a season on time or finished the season when it concluded very often lately. And to me, makes it very difficult to trade the player. One of the other big question marks going in, though, Drysdale and can he pick up where he left off? But the impact of Brad Shaw leaving is something to keep an eye on for sure. And how the players are going to adjust to Rick Tockett's, box in one system, but without Bradshaw here as well. It's one of those things that you go in and I wonder about.
For sure. Bradshaw is one of the best in the business, by
Bar none.
with without a question. Without a question. And I mean, I will say this with some certainty though. If you have to replace a Bradshaw, Todd Reardon's about as good as you're going to get too. Todd Reardon's another outstanding defensive coach. He did a great job in Washington. That's actually why he got the head job
After Barry Trotz.
after Barry Trotz left.
Yep.
But if you look at what he did for defensemen in Washington, he did very similar things to what Bradshaw did. So the Flyers should be able to hit the ground running, but it hurts to see Shawsey go, and But at the very least, they have an outstanding coach coming in too. So I'm pretty confident in that regard.
Bill, when I look at the things, the question marks, and this isn't the definitive list of question marks, I wonder about the goal scoring touch this year for Owen Tippett. I think it's so huge for him to get off to a good start. I don't worry. Some people may say, well, next steps for Matvei Michkov because the league has some film on him. They're going to adjust to him. I think players like him, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think there's there's so much unpredictability about him as a player. I don't worry. But with a guy like Tippett, I think a fast start could be some wave that he can ride. He's going to have some downtimes through the year, but a fast start can really put the nice kick to a season for him.
Well, I do think a fast start is important just because the latter part of last season was not what he wanted or anybody wanted. He had the injury that he was playing through. He came back from it. He missed time, but he never really got back on track. Jason, the thing with Tippett, and we've said this before many times, every goal scorer is going to have his slumps along the way. Even the truly elite goal scorers. To me, the biggest thing with Owen is those stretches with 6 goals in 8 games or 7 in 11 games. They're fantastic, but he can't have those 14 game stretches with one, where it happens a couple times a year.
Suddenly you're looking at more than half a season of that.
Yeah, just shorten those, and then I think you're looking at that guy we've always talked about. The guy should be scoring 30 plus goals a year. The talent's there to do it. It really has to be this year, though, Jason. Yeah,
has to be. Let's get to one more, Bill, ancillary question mark. Then we're going to get into next week, the known commodities and a couple of other scenarios as we start to set our expectations. But let me ask you this. How much of a question mark is Sean Couturier for you? Under new coaching staff, I thought he finished last year playing his best hockey since he came back from the surgeries. How much of a question mark is he for you?
My question is just more, does he hold up for the whole season?
Yeah.
I
wonder where he fits a little bit too.
Yeah, well, that at the beginning, particularly.
Yeah.
Last year I thought he was. To me, Sean Couturier is still not a fourth line center. Okay, mm-hmm. Sean Couturier to me is better than that. I didn't like that brief experiment to move him to the left wing. I really didn't like moving him down to the fourth line, where they ended up putting him not in position to succeed.
Not only that, but it's 12 minutes a game, 9 minutes a game one night.
He had some stretches in there were just, I didn't like his utilization, and I just I get this, I get the lack of speed, right? But the brain is always made up for the lack of speed. I really thought he was playing his best hockey since the back surgery, and I thought he finished in a really good place. Actually, I don't think it's not for nothing where, I thought after the coaching change with Shaw as the interim, and I thought that he really finished strong and finished in a good place. So we'll see how it all plays out in terms of roles and usage and line mates and those kind of things. As long as he's healthy, I think he can actually have a little bit better and more consistent year than a year ago. He's never going to be a 30 goal scorer again. He's never going to be a 70 point guy again, but he can still be a lot of what he's shown he can be and showed in in stretches, right, a year ago. So I think this is an important year for Coots and really for the team. You know, there's going to be competition for ice time too. We were talking about the centers that they brought in, and some guys might move to a wing, and whether that's whether that's Dvorak, whether Zegras goes back to wing or whatever. I mean, Couturier has to be a rock for the team. I mean, where it was such a big part of the team's success before the back injuries was he was the guy you just put him in the lineup every night. There wasn't really all that much of a gap between his best games and his not so great games. You knew what you're going to get every night, every situation with them. That's really just what I want to see from Couturier. The offense will be what it is. It will still be there at points, maybe not at the level it once was, but just in terms of the game in and game out, what you're going to get shift in, shift out. That's what I think he still needs to be for this team.
Set it and forget it when it came to Couturier those years. I used to say whenever the coaching staff, whether it was AV or Hackstall or anybody, when they were changing lines and the team was struggling, there was a line outside the coach's door asking to play on his wing. Yeah. Because of how much he freed you up to do other things.
For sure.
That says a lot about the player. So we'll get into the known commodities next week. One of the things I'll tip people off right now about the known commodities is I have no worry about anybody named Travis. Let's just leave it at that. So we'll get into that next week and some other things that we set our expectations here in the offseason as the Flyers season. We're really not that far off in the mid part of July here. We got to still get through August, and we're going to have some fun doing it. But everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Read Bill's work at PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, and the great HockeyHotStove.com as well. And we'll be back Wednesday with yet another brand new Flyers Daily.